You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
So I just found out that James Marsden,
my noted enemy
and my noted passion, is in the GVRD, as we call it, the Greater Vancouver Regional District, in making a Stephen King movie called The Stand. Yes. And you know how I feel about James Marsden. I mean, it's not like a super strong feeling. It's more of a like if I met him, I would just say, I appreciate your strange work.
I mean, I wish he did more strange work. I feel that, again, you know how I feel about his utter blandness.
I know, and I feel like if you met him, probably you would be thrown off your feet, and it wouldn't be bland, because I think he's very handsome.
Oh, it's not about the handsomeness. Like, I find, well, maybe it is. I find his handsomeness quite bland as well.
Well, that's why they throw him in those movies, right?
Yeah.
Because he's always going to be the jilted lover.
He doesn't bring that, extra...
Do you remember him on 30 Rock when he was dating Liz Lemon? That was pretty funny.
Oh, no, I found that dull, too. I was like, really? I mean, good for Liz Lemon.
You're just like Jack Donaghy, right? Trying to dissuade her from that relationship.
I am, yeah, honestly. But I just, there's just... You know how sometimes, there's just a real absence of life in someone's eyes?
Wow. James Marsden doesn't deserve that. Maybe it's because of the Westworld thing, right? Where he does play a robot, doesn't he?
See, I actually think the Westworld thing is his most interesting role today because it really takes advantage of his woodenness.
Yes.
And he can really... There's something that allows him to come alive when embracing his woodenness. That's the curious thing about him.
I feel like he has, much like Gary Marshall has shown up an awful lot in our series of podcasts. I feel like James Marsden is in a lot of them as well.
Well, he's been in several movies that we've done and stuff that we've talked about.
Strangely.
Yeah, I mean, not really strangely,
He's just insinuated himself in just about everything.
I mean,
from comedy to drama to horror to series to movies.
He's a more, palatable presence, I suppose, than, say, watching a really terrible Adam Sandler comedy or something. But, there's a ubiquity to him.
Yeah.
And it's...
I feel like
it's boring.
What he deserves is like I said, an appreciation for his contribution, odd as it may be, small as it may be, but there's something that he has added. There's something about his presence that when they are casting something, it's like, this is a James Marsden vehicle.
See, I have to respectfully disagree in that I find him utterly utterly forgettable.
Dead to Me. We like Dead to Me.
Yeah, I thought he was okay in Dead to Me. I like playing against type there. That's
because he was the bad guy.
Because he's the bad guy. And it gives him something to do. But there's a forgettableness to him.
Well, no, he is the guy that people dump in movies, like in The Notebook, right?
Yeah.
For Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
He gets thrown over.
Yeah.
I think also in the X-Men movies, right?
I really hate his performance in X-Men movies.
Well, and he's up against...
truly terrible.
Come on, he's up against Wolverine.
Yeah, I just don't care for Hugh Jackman. I find him also dull.
I'm shocked and appalled. Shocked and appalled.
I'm always shocking and appalling you.
What isn't there to love about Hugh Jackman?
I find him a little bit boring. Maybe you did not enjoy
the Wolverine performance.
No, I find the Wolverine performance a little bit, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. I just don't really care much.
Wow. I'm falling off my chair.
He
has a delight in his movies. And remember his time when he hosted the Oscars? Not great, but still he did it, and that was interesting. But also, he's just this lovely, beloved man in Australia. He and his wife, they're the sweetest couple. Their children, his dogs. I don't know what you want.
I just want something that's a little bit above mediocrity.
Well, he can sing. He is the triple threat.
He can sing and dance, and I do appreciate
and
that.
Act. All of it. Isn't that the triple threat?
I think, yeah. I mean, yeah. But again,
he's like the J-Lo of the Hugh Jackman or whatever that is.
Oh, that's such a burn to J-Lo.
I do not think so.
That is such a burn to J-Lo.
No.
Yeah,
No.
J-Lo's much more interesting. Hugh Jackman just, I don't know.
He was in The Greatest Showman.
Yeah. Is
People
that
love
in
that
his
movie.
favorite?
People love that movie.
It's
Not a critically
reviled.
Critically reviled, yes, but publicly loved.
Do you love that movie?
I have not seen it.
Then how is it factoring
Because
into your defense of Hugh Jackman?
Because I know people love it and they talk about it all the time in the songs in the movie. And when I watch reality song competitions, there's like big numbers that they love to do, and people really love that movie. You know that thing we haven't looked at, but you know Rotten Tomatoes says the
I know the public score versus the
critical
critic
one.
Score.
You're gonna find that people love that movie.
I mean, maybe, but people love a lot of things that are terrible.
Well,
so that's like kind of. Just
I'm not
our
saying.
cultural...
I just said people love it. I did not say it was good.
Yeah.
I literally said people love it.
Sure, it doesn't add to like Hugh Jackman's.
Sure, it does because people love it. They love it. They love him.
I mean, it's just because people love him doesn't mean I have to love him.
No. I'm just saying that I believe he has that he floats above like he's sort of Hugh Jackman.
So he just is above.
It's like a presence.
My indifference.
I think that if you probably spent a little time with Hugh Jackman, you would change your tune.
So much time with Hugh Jackman.
Have you really?
I have. I've
like
seen
what?
quite a few of his films. I have watched a lot of. Weirdly enough, we watch a lot of Tony Awards shows.
Right. And when he played Peter Allen, that was pretty interesting.
Again, some of his things are fun and fine, and I think he tries hard. But I feel like I see
tries hard. Ooh,
that's the thing. I feel like I see every inch of exertion on his face, and I want something that just feels less performative in my life.
Wow.
I know I'm harsh. I understand that.
Yeah.
But you know an Australian that I do love quite a lot?
Nicole Kidman?
It is Nicole Kidman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, this is our segue.
This is our segue.
Yeah. It was weird because I knew what film we were doing, but for some unknown reason I kind of forgot she was Australian, but of course.
It really jolted you.
It does.
I feel.
It did. It did.
I'm Andrea Warner.
And I'm Lisa Christiansen.
And we are talking about one of Nicole Kidman's sort of like breakthrough roles in the film To Die For.
Yeah, which is 25. 25 years old, To Die For. And I had really forgotten this movie.
I had never seen it.
I believe I saw it. I'm pretty sure I saw it. It just, I had kind of forgot that I saw it.
Yeah. This is my first time watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sort of shocked that it's taken me this long to see. As happens with like several movies that I come to late for this podcast.
Culture's busy.
Culture is busy. Look, I had The Greatest Showman to ignore first.
Right.
That's going to take me another 25 years to get to for sure. To Die For was, I mean,
you knew about it, though.
I knew about it.
Yes.
And I knew about the like true crime case behind it.
Yes.
I was not prepared for how much I really enjoyed the movie.
Interesting. Now, you know what it was making me think of? Because we did Serial Mom.
Yes.
It really made me think of that.
I feel like Gus Van Sant was hugely influenced by Serial Mom.
Yeah, and so that would have been a few years earlier?
It was like 10 years earlier.
10 years earlier.
Yeah,
wow.
like the Serial Mom was, I think, in the 80s.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, Serial Mom's 94?
Oh, so the year before. So they must have been working them on them pretty much the same time.
Serial Mom was, only 94. That's wild.
Yeah.
Huh. I really thought it was the 80s.
Were you thinking about Serial Mom while you were watching To Die For, though?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So To Die For is a 1995 criminal comedy drama film made in a mockumentary format, directed by Gus Van Sant and written by Buck Henry, based on the novel of the same name by Joyce Maynard, which in turn was inspired by the story of Pamela Smart. It stars Nicole Kidman, Matt Dillon, Joaquin Phoenix. Major supporting roles feature Ileana Douglas, Wayne Knight, Casey Affleck, Kurtwood Smith, Dan Hedaya, Allison Folland, Kidman was nominated for a BAFTA and won a Golden Globe Award and a Best Actress Award at the first Empire Awards for performance. Her character has been described as suffering from narcissistic personality disorder in the scientific journals BMC Psychiatry.
Yeah, and Pamela Smart, like the sort of inspiration for her character. I'm not gonna go into the whole thing, but she was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder, witness tampering, and accomplice to first-degree murder in 1990. She was only 22 years old, but she is accused of sort of conspiring and engaging her sort of 15-year-old. I'm gonna call him a victim because she's a rapist and he's 15.
Yes.
15-year-old kid Billy Flynn and his friends to have her 24-year-old husband murdered in New Hampshire. So she's convicted of that accomplice to first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and witness tampering. And she is also still serving her life sentence in a jail in Westchester County, New York.
Yeah, and so just to give you a quick synopsis, we do have what it's based on. But so Suzanne Stone, played by Nicole Kidman, is a weather reporter at her small-town cable station, but she dreams of being a big-time news anchor. However, she feels that her middle-class husband, Matt Dillon, is holding her back. So she, as one does, decides to have him murdered. I added that editorial comment in there. For this, she enlists Jimmy, Joaquin Phoenix, a high school boy who was enamored with her. The plan doesn't work exactly as she intended, though, and her husband's family starts to suspect that she was involved in his death.
Yeah, it's the style of filming, I think, is really a smart treatment. Like,
I wouldn't really call it mockumentary.
Well, it's a little bit because it's that talking to the camera
It
style.
is, but we don't know I don't know. It's not like, say, mockumentary, like when you watch Spinal Tap, where you have a clear sense of who the director is.
No, but it is in the same way of like The Office and Parks and Rec. Like there's there's that
breaking the fourth wall.
Breaking the fourth wall and talking directly to some sort of unseen filmmaker or whatever. And I think that really makes this movie work in a way that it couldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It had to have it. I just felt like maybe in 95, when I saw it, I probably hadn't seen that much of it.
Yeah.
Except for, like I mentioned, Spinal Tap or some other ones. But now it's such a common trope. Almost everything I think we watch now, like, it feels like has an element of that. Like,
it's certainly like a really popular,
and especially in comedy,
device.
like you mentioned, The Office, and I think it started with The British Office, which was from 2000. Actually, that goes back that far, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The Ricky Gervais, and then we had the Parks and Rec and things like that. So it's been around
for sure. And I think one of the things that this movie balances really well for me, but I am a fan of this kind of comedy style, is that really dark humor, that sort of there's that balance of kind of like almost like nihilistic comedy. It's a little bit bleak, it's a little bit cynical, and I find it very funny. How did you feel about it? Because that's not your normal beat.
No, it is not, and I did not care for this.
Yeah.
I did not.
You hated it?
I didn't hate it. I guess I always just find it unnecessary to just, I feel like the real story is already crazy enough that we could just tell it straight up. But I feel like there's this extra layer of Gus Van Sant and Buck Henry, who also has a part as the teacher, of just wanting to make fun of women and celebrity culture, and I find that boring. I find it that they have an agenda.
Yeah.
And so I'm a lot less interested when it's real.
Yeah.
If these were real lines that Pamela Smart had said, but I don't think she was an anchor, or I don't know what.
No, she was a media person in the school it's a weird job that she had.
Yeah.
In the school, that gave her access to these kids, and it's definitely different.
Yeah.
They take a lot of liberties, and I think that one of the things what I like about it is I didn't feel that necessarily. I didn't feel necessarily that they were just making fun of women, because there's so much that they show to balance out all of the insufferable, awful things that Suzanne experiences based on like the sexism and the misogyny that surrounds her in the culture at the time. So I didn't feel as much like they were making fun of women. I did feel like they were definitely making fun of that sort of 15 minutes of fame, Andy Warhol, like reality, like the beginnings of reality TV, and that desire to have, like, I think one of the, and I just went back to this line over and over again thinking about it, and I think it gets repeated twice in the film. You're not anybody in America unless you're on TV. What's the point of doing something worthwhile if nobody's watching?
Yeah, but I find that so boring. I just don't care anymore about that thought.
But do you care about it
when it was 95?
In 1995?
No, I'm just...
Really?
No, I don't. I don't know. It just is so... It's boringly cynical. Like, I just feel like... And I also don't know if I think that's who Suzanne was. I feel like she was a person that really thought she could be a journalist, but just really wasn't smart enough. And that's sad. And I think probably the scene that was the most striking to me in this whole movie, really, was the conversation with George Siegel as the news executive, telling a story about how this woman made her way up the top of the ranks with this fake letter. And how I love the way Nicole played that and didn't understand it at all. Like, just did not get it. And I just found that it is a nasty business. And I thought just, that she wasn't bright enough for it. However, that said, she did have the instinct to want to be a journalist. She said things like, it might just show on PBS, which is more cred than it is ratings. So she has a sense of what she would like to do. And so then I just felt like, why are we doing this to her in this story?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a really fair question. I think that they didn't even necessarily have to say we're basing it on the inspiration of this character or this real woman who did this thing. I feel like that's maybe the most cynical part, is they could have easily just written this film and they've taken so many liberties that they didn't really have to invoke Pamela's name at all.
Maybe it's because I would say since maybe 95, I've been able to watch more documentaries, more true crime documentaries, listen to more podcasts. And I think listening to the real person and the real story is just so much more interesting than all of this fictional stuff that is laid on the top of this. That her husband was too dull and they made him, there wasn't any reason to dislike him and want to see him murdered.
Well, I think I felt like I was watching a very like sort of a cynical and sort of sarcastic commentary on sort of like the American dream, right? Like he's got this house, he's got this family business. There's this weird sort of weird mobster tie-in, this sort of like weird stereotyping of Italian Americans that's happening, that is sort of, it was its own form of prejudice for a very long time. Like this woman who sort of has crossed this kind of like class and these class boundaries that are sort of exist invisibly in her world, because she, at least according to her father, got a junior college diploma and she's marrying beneath her and this guy who just runs his dad's like pizza parlor.
So I guess, there seemed to be an element of also treating her as a person who was... Okay, so this psychological disorder that I introduced at the beginning, right, in the introduction.
The narcissism.
Yeah, was that something that was explored at the time for the movie, or is this something we've learned since then?
I mean, I feel like that's not ascribed to Pamela necessarily.
Yeah.
It's I think that's specific to the character of Suzanne Stone.
Okay. Because there is a side to her that is very, I guess we're supposed to think attracted to like dirty sex with men beneath her, which is maybe why she starts the relationship with the high school burnout kid, as well as, because I mean, he's very much just like a younger version of the guy she ends up marrying.
Well, there's something kind of, so that's one of the things that I'm sort of like I feel like this movie does condense like two halves of a different people into this one character. So like she is not quite quick enough to understand what George Segal is telling her in the story of the woman who has worked her way up through the journalism networking. But within and so there's a naivete there that is like kind of both an innocence and whatever. And is that moment when she sort of gets woken up to what her future might have to be, which is just constantly, giving like not wanting to, but feeling like you are coerced into giving blowjobs in order to get a successful career as a woman in journalism. When she comes back to her hotel room and seduces her husband, like, I don't know if that's the moment where we're expected to believe that she did go back to the hotel room with George Segal.
Yes.
Or if this is just now this light that has gone on in her brain where she understands, really truly understands sort of like the power that she both does not have and the power that she wields as a woman in 1995.
But she seems to understand that, because there was the scene where Matt Dillon's trying to explain to his sister why he is attracted to her.
Because they have such great sex outdoors and weird places.
And she's a volcano. And then, like, I was, in terms of our male gaze situation, she looked like some sort of Lolita every time she showed up in the bar. And I was, what is going on?
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
Does she know this? Is this like, and that's what's
and that's what her agency is so weird. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, does she have agency or does she have no agency?
Yeah, exactly. If that's how she wants to look, by all means.
Yeah.
Then if she has like decided, I mean, and then when she moves into the house, they give us a sense that she sort of wants to start looking like she's in Valley of the Dolls or something.
Well, that she has decided that like she is now
a glamorous.
She has to dress for the part she wants.
Yeah.
Which is that of glamorous newswoman.
Yeah. Well, but with the scene where she's at home.
Yeah.
So I just was not sure I understood anything about her motivation.
Well, and then the hard pivot from like being naive and not understanding the George Segal story to within maybe 15 minutes of identifying that this 15-year-old kid finds her attractive, to then like laying out this sort of like really predatory grooming situation
with all of
the children.
Yeah, it doesn't,
or all of the teenagers, and being so cold, so calculating, and so like it's so weird, the different things that they sort of try to force her to do. She went all of a sudden,
the one scene where he decides that, Matt Dillon, she comes home and he's sitting with his beer. He's like, I think we should talk. And that's where that scene where she just turns.
Well, he says no to her.
He says no to her.
That's the catalyst.
Yes, but that's dumb. That didn't even make any.
It's
they
silly,
set it up for us.
Yeah, but
right?
They set it up. They're like, okay, well, she gets everything she wants.
Yes.
And I guess that's supposed to like sort of activate the narcissistic element of her personality.
Which does not make sense, because we know a million times he must have said no, and she coerced the yes out of him at some point in this marriage. Like, it's dumb.
Yeah, 100%. And also, like, we know that she is slightly diabolical for the ways in which she. And I think she is smarter than she lets on, because she like talks about how if Ileana Douglas just like in their first time meeting her presumed potential new sister-in-law, if she just gets plastic surgery, she'll start to feel much better about herself.
Yeah.
If Matt Dillon has gotten too fat, he's got these love handles.
Yeah.
She's obsessed with whether or not she looks perfect. Like,
Cameron puts on 5 pounds.
And maybe they just don't go deep enough into that kind of sort of darkness.
For this movie to have really been very successful for me, I really feel like I would have needed to understand her better, or know what this story was supposed to be about.
Yeah. Like, I feel like I did really like it, but I feel like it doesn't. it doesn't hold up to a ton of scrutiny after the fact.
Yeah. I know you're watching it and you're all like, yeah, dumb women who want to be on TV. Huh?
No, I wasn't.
That's what it felt like they were saying.
No, I wasn't. I thought that there was a truth to the sadness of like still even in 1995, there's a certain idea that the only power women can have is to be beholden by someone. And that's what television does. It gives you the chance to be seen by millions when you are made to feel invisible in your daily life. And so I feel like I understood that. Like I wasn't watching it thinking that her dreams were stupid or like that her desires were stupid. I was watching it thinking like the media has really pushed us to this point. But
she wanted to be a journalist. She thought
I don't think she
did.
But look at the journalist she wanted to be. She wanted to be on television.
Yes.
Like that was the kind of journalism she wanted to be. She wasn't
perfectly legitimate. Diane Sawyer, Jane Pauley, and she mentions Maria Shriver.
Yeah, but they didn't start on television. They started, Maria Shriver might have. But like all the rest of them started as doing like journalism in newspapers.
I don't know about that.
I'm pretty sure.
I know Diane Sawyer was a beauty queen.
She was, and a lot of them were, of course.
Yeah.
But she was talking about how...
Jane Pauley, I think, got a really early start on when she replaced Barbara Walters on the Today Show. But really young.
But she was talking about how these women are known independent of their husbands.
Yes.
And again, very specifically, the only type of journalist she wanted to be was to be a fancy high-class woman on television.
Sure.
And I think that that's a fine dream, but I think there's a lot there that you can, and I would feel compelled to like analyze why that's the specific dream and what that says about our culture.
1995 is difficult.
Yeah, but like,
25 years ago.
There's echoes of it still pretty relevant to this day.
Yeah, I don't think, I think we know that successful women on TV have to be beautiful and blonde. We have tons of examples of that. Yeah. So she's not stupid to have not noticed that.
It's not stupid. It's just about like
I've met women in
there's not any interest in sort of like upending the system.
Sure,
she wants to be part of the system.
No, she had this idea that she was going to go get a camera, and she kept coming to her boss Wayne Knight with all kinds of new ideas, and he was like, "I'm done with your ideas." And then she had the one about going into the high school to talk about teens, and so no, I think she had a sense of it, and that's why this film confuses me so much. I don't feel like it knew what it was trying to do.
But I feel like her documentary, she's not just behind the camera. Like, she's still wanting to, like, bring her vision of, teen life. Like, when they watch that documentary, they are deeply dismissive.
Because think of another example of when we watch broadcast news.
Yeah.
Which is a tremendous movie and also a really great indictment of journalism and TV journalism with William Hurt being almost the exact equivalent.
He's very much the exact equivalent.
Right?
Yeah.
But we don't treat him that. We treat him as like kind of a, he's not really bright, and we get that.
He is the villain of the piece, ultimately.
Ultimately, but a benign villain. There's
we're not going to interrogate his shallowness the way we would interrogate a woman's shallowness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I found this movie was cruel.
But I think that the cruelty of it is sort of...
Obviously, she murders people, and that's not something I'm excusing. Or has people murdered.
But the cruelty of it is sort of like in keeping with like, it invites us to sort of consider why that cruelty
exists. I think there's a way to do it, and I think broadcast news did it really well. And that was, 87?
Yeah, it was somewhere in the 80s, yeah.
Yeah, 87 or something. And I think to where we get with the To Die For, I'm just like, I think you guys could have done better.
Well, one of the people, so Amy Nicholson wrote about it for Rolling Stone in a few different, there's a few different quotes that we've got here. But one of the things I thought was super interesting, she says that, but what's left out in the conversation about women who would literally kill for fame, Suzanne was really good at her job, and if the men in her life had noticed, people would still be alive. And
Bingo bango.
I kind of got to agree with that.
I do too.
All her husband wanted to do was to dismiss her dreams, invalidate her interests, and he wanted her to go into the restaurant business.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should murder someone for that. No. And please don't rape a 15-year-old. But yeah.
But if you wanted to do, okay, that's interesting. Okay, now, if they wanted to make a movie about fragile masculinity.
I would argue that this movie is partly about fragile masculinity.
Because Matt Dillon is super supportive of is super supportive. Look at her on TV.
Again,
she's
male
going
gaze.
places.
It's just male gaze.
Right? Just like, I support her. She's so smart. And then all of a sudden, there is this sense to him that this is getting out of hand.
Yep.
That he wants her there around.
Yeah.
I think
he wants a wife.
He wants a wife. I think that's a much more interesting movie than this one.
But I do think that I think they get at it. I think they just don't explore it enough. And
they didn't explore it enough. And still, when we see them get
focus on the salacious aspect of what she does.
Yeah, and those scenes of her having to have sex with him, unnecessary.
Joaquin Phoenix?
Yes.
Yeah.
With that open shirt and buying the underwear. Like, what was the...
they're painting the femme fatale, and they're giving, that sort of thing.
And so what she got, that the young girl was attracted to her in some way, so she should show her... And to get her on her side, and
well, because she knows the young girl was. And I actually thought this was sort of like, this is the part where, because there's a lot of this movie where I can be like, I'm kind of on Suzanne's side.
Yeah.
And then the turn for me is when it gets to like the thing where we see her close the door on. The woman, the girl, I can't remember her name, but she comes, Lydia, she comes, and then we see her at the mall, and she's so, like, and we see also these flashbacks where she has just, like, Lydia has poured her heart out to her. She was, like,
and she's been sexually
molested
abused
by her stepfather, like, and this, like, all of this stuff, and we see just how cold and calculating Suzanne can be about that.
Right, and
that's really the turn for I was like, oh, diabolical.
And where did that come from? Like, it's odd. It doesn't make sense.
Well, it does in the grooming aspect, but because it asks us to contend, which honestly kind of, I don't want to give this movie necessarily more credit than it deserves, but so often after the fact, after someone has done something horrible, they interview a bunch of family members around them or friends or whatever, and they're like, we had no idea. We had no idea that this person was doing this.
Which is what this movie was doing, because there was the family was on sort of a Phil Donahue type show or something. Yeah.
And this is sort of what this movie portrays, is that like sometimes evil is just hiding in plain sight because people are complex. And it's creepy and it's awful.
That's an evil that is just beyond. And also, there's no...
I've watched too much Dateline. It's sort of there.
Okay, I mean... We all know these true crime stories of someone getting involved to murder someone, but she got nothing out of this either.
Well, she said she got
the condo?
No, but what she really got was she got to fix her hair, go out and be on camera.
That she wasn't expecting.
And be the focus. Oh, I think she jumped on it real fast. And
No, she did. And then again, I just thought this was not a movie that liked women.
I mean, and honestly, a Gus Van Sant film, you may not be wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it may be very much a movie that doesn't like women.
Yeah.
It didn't, because I felt that I didn't feel as much that way. Like, normally in a movie that doesn't like women, my gut goes off a little bit more. There's a bit more hatefulness towards women. And I felt that it made us on Suzanne's side so much of the time that it balanced that out for me.
Well, and then the ending.
The ending, I was like a little, because I mean, this movie I would say also maybe hates Italian Americans, and
weird. Both of us were like David Cronenberg.
Yep.
Canadian director, David Cronenberg.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's. And just like even Ileana Douglas as a figure skater, and she's like skating over Suzanne's icy grave at the end, like it's and no one knows where she is or where she's gone. Like I knew the house would factor in at some point because
they show that scene of the scream. But
yeah,
but why would a guy go through all that effort to murder someone and then put them under the? How do you even do that?
I'm guessing there's like a ice fishing hole.
And he put her in there in that dress?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, they're not thinking about the thaw.
No, they're not. And it didn't, I don't know. It just, and then you find her body there and it Like, I don't know. It was flummoxing. Is that a word?
Flummoxing for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the only one who really, I mean, Lydia, I guess, is the one that gets to live the sort of dream life that Suzanne was trying to set up for herself.
Because she's going to go be on shows. Yes.
Because she's going to go and be on shows, and she's entertaining offers. And, I mean, it's, I think that this is a complicated movie.
Yeah, the only thing I will say that I was pleased about is that Walter didn't die, as you know.
When the dog dies.
When the dog dies, I'm very disappointed.
Yep.
And so seeing Walter in the car with his little pink knit cap on, I felt better.
Yep.
I mein, perhaps I should have been a bit more worried.
I was worried about the dog, actually, in a way that I don't normally get super worried about but I, for whatever reason, had felt close to Walter a little bit, I guess, because he really was so cute when he came out of the box and he was on her stairs. And
I feel like he was trying to make, this is what I feel like with Gus Van Sant.
Yeah.
I feel like he was trying to make something that looked cooler and was a bit rougher and had a real John Waters feel.
Yeah.
I really thought but it ended up making something that just looked like a movie of the week.
I didn't think it looked like a movie of the week. I think for 1995, it probably was a bit more impressive. Like, people hadn't quite seen a film that sort of played with format this much. Because it does jump around in time a lot. It does have some, like, kind of slightly weird characters and locales, and like the junkyard scene where the three teens are like hanging out.
Yeah, but then there's scenes like, why do we have to see her dancing in front of the car in the rain to Leonard Skinner?
That was ridiculous. But I guess that is the way that she can ensure that Jimmy falls in love.
She
this
could
is
have had
Jimmy's
sex
dream.
with him once, and
Sure.
he would have been in.
Sure.
And
honestly,
instead,
I think she probably could have just not had sex with him.
I think
he
she
would have been
probably,
in.
yes. I think she, but it sounds like when he recounts to the policeman 40 or 50 times or
They
something.
were doing it a lot.
They were. So
yeah.
that was her, like, really wanting to have this sex with this kid. But then there was no reason to suggest that she couldn't have been having that same sex with her husband, who she was also attracted to, because there was sort of a dirtbagness to him.
But there's a different predatory factor. She's raping this kid.
Yes, I know, but
15.
I didn't. Where did that come from? Like, I don't understand. Where all of a
it's a power
sudden
dynamic. It's gross.
Yeah, I just would have liked a bit more of a, like, especially in a movie that has got all that voiceover stuff.
Yeah.
You could have done better.
Well, I think, you can't get her to ever admit what she's done.
No, there could have been some flashback scenes to her childhood, though, when she was a kid and doing evil, bizarre things. You know what I mean? Like,
but but the thing is, like, I don't really know or understand fully, like, the journey to being a predator. Like, there's so many different people who do different journeys.
Sure. So this is what it looks like. I don't feel like they, I could be wrong, but I don't feel like they looked up a manual.
No, and I don't think there is, though. Like, that's the thing. Like, I think that it's very reasonable that this could be that she just is deeply narcissistic, is used to getting exactly what she wants, and she will do whatever she has to do to get what she wants.
Yeah, it just seemed like a really quick turn. I've wanted things too, but I don't all of a sudden go, hey, wait a second.
Yeah,
maybe
but you're
if
not
I seduce the kids at the school and they can murder my husband. Like, it's a big, big turn to make. Even when we've talked about, because we talked about on this podcast, that movie Gaslight. I think it had a slower sort of, excuse the pun, burn up to something.
Yeah, but we ultimately discovered, it's a slower burn because he has to gaslight her into it.
Yeah.
We've already started. He's already a murderer in the beginning.
Yes, he is.
Like,
he is. We didn't know.
And we don't know why he's a murderer.
But then when we do find out, you're like, oh, that makes sense now.
But we don't know why he's necessarily a murderer. Like, that never gets answered. Like, we don't necessarily...
Well, he's a murderer.
Yeah, but so is she, technically. She just doesn't want to get her hands dirty. She's
more than just a murderer.
No, I know. She's lots of things. But so is he. He's grooming an 18-year-old to sort of like, and he is forcing her to think she's insane. Like,
because he wants jewels or whatever. It's
it's just money.
Small,
but so it's not necessarily like the most out of this world thing.
I don't want to say that makes sense to me. I understand the motivation for Jules. I do not understand her motivation in this movie.
I mean, I believe that we are meant to be. It's just being on TV and being famous. And I know that that's a very shallow sort of motivation.
And again, they sort of like throw in this, you could just get divorced. And it doesn't even make any sense, her answer. Something like, I won't get the condo or...
Well, I think that's her excuse to Jimmy. Because she tries to tell him that, like, her husband's abusing her.
Yeah.
It's not the real reason why she's not going to do it.
No, I know. It just didn't... It was... Anyway, sorry, we're going to have to, like... I did not like it.
No, and that's totally fair.
Yeah.
I think it's completely fine. I had a lot more time for this movie, and I feel like I will think about it for a little bit longer. I'm especially interested in sort of some of these like takes after the fact of like
and it felt
especially
very
this Amy Nicholson being like basically Amy Nicholson's article, and I think that this has happened a little bit where she says, "Can a murderess be a feminist icon? Why not? Especially when we as a culture have a hard time marshaling empathy for Teflon blondes, especially the ones who don't always deserve it. Van Sant doesn't fully excuse Suzanne, but he asks us to consider her side. It's not his fault that audiences don't."
But that's not true. I do, but for the right reasons. I understand what her... I understand her wanting to be famous. I understand her wanting to be a journalist on TV. I understand that moment for her when she stood in front of the mirror, you know, and looked at herself and then looked over at the screen at Jane Pauley and then looked back and went, I could do that. Mm-hmm. I understand that. This rest of it I don't get.
Yeah, but I mean, that when you texted me in the middle of this movie, am I supposed to like Suzanne?
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's what she's getting at.
Yeah, no, she is.
And I think that...
But she's okay with her as a murderer, too, though.
Well,
on her quest to something.
I don't think anyone's sort of like tacitly accepting like murder.
No, but I just don't...
But she's allowing for like... In terms of sort of fictionalized characters, because that's what she is. Even though she's based on this real person, it's still a fictional character.
Yeah.
That she gets to be complicated and messy and someone we don't entirely understand. You know, in the way that a lot of female characters don't get to be.
True. But just going back to the Serial Mom again. It wasn't my favorite movie when we had discussed it, and it still won't be. But I felt like Kathleen Turner's performance made more sense. You know what I mean?
And I think John Waters has like a much more clear vision of the things that he's doing.
She didn't want to be famous necessarily.
No.
Like the things came her way because she has a very bad anger management problem.
And she wants perfection.
And in its own way, that makes sense in that universe. I'm curious. I don't know where this went so wrong for Suzanne.
Well, I think anchoring it to Pamela.
Yes.
Honestly, is kind of the
you're
problem.
Probably right. That is it. Exactly.
Yeah.
It was unnecessary.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think like if she had just been like her own character.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess like.
It's like the movie is punishing her for wanting these things and at the same time saying that we're also going to give her some weird story where she's just so beautiful. She's just so over the top sexy that she just has to even seduce the 15-year-old boys.
Yeah, I don't think it comes down to she just like that she's over the top beautiful and has to seduce him. I think this is like a sort of like more deeply seated sort of power dynamic that she
but we hadn't
doesn't
I don't know.
have a lot of power in her real life,
but she seems to have all the power.
Well, she seems to have all the power, but she doesn't. She has to resort to murder and rape. Like, I mean, these are a lot of the things that people. I feel like a lot of crime is actually committed in this like attempt to exert control over a situation, and it really backfires and blows up.
But I don't think this would be a very interesting podcast if it was a real crime.
But it is a real crime.
Well, but I mean, I don't think it would be this. That's all.
All right, so it does not pop for you, I'm guessing.
It does not.
It does for me.
Yeah, well, there you go.
That mixed pop.
The mixed pop. I like it.
What do you recommend? If not this.
If not this. I have, and I hope to do this for an upcoming episode, started watching Sex Education.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've never watched it, but I'm interested.
It is really a marvelous watch. And so the second season just came out on Netflix. The third season has just been ordered. It is very complicated to try and explain what this is about just loosely. There is a young boy in England. He is very scared kind of sex. His mom is a very forward sex therapist, played by Gillian Anderson. And he inadvertently finds himself as an amateur sex therapist helping the students at the school with their sexual problems.
Fun.
So that is a wacky premise there.
Yeah.
But it's very warm spirited and lovely. And it's just a really great watch if you haven't got around to it, because jeepers, everyone, it is crowded out there.
It is crowded out there. I'm going to add to the landscape as well. I've only watched one episode, so I can't say if it holds up. But Work in Progress by Abby McEnany is on HBO. Abby plays someone named Abby, who sort of is, her life is a bit complicated by mental health, sort of gender presentation, and the character of Pat that was created by Julia Sweeney, and how Julia Sweeney's Pat has ruined Abby's life.
Oh, wow.
And Julia Sweeney is also on the show.
Wow.
And
because I've read lots of her discussing that.
And how bad Pat has aged and how awful it's been and how difficult it has been, for like gender nonconforming people. Anyway, I've only watched the first episode. It is funny. It's dark. It's touching. It's very human. Tons of different sort of like gender variety and queer representation, mental health stuff. It could be a show that is like hard for people to watch. I completely understand that, but it's like also a very funny and very human show, and I love it so much.
Wow. And the last time we saw Julia Sweeney was in Shrill.
Yes.
Playing her mom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, she seems to be doing a lot more than I haven't seen her in a
Yeah,
while. But that's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
I look forward to watching that.
It's really good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. You can hang out with us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. You could also rate and review us 5 stars.
5 stars.
Yeah.
And our producer is Andrea Gin. We are recording at the Vancouver Public Library, as we do each week, and we'll see you soon.